The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a sound like thunder. Ambassador Jinwoo walked through them with steady steps, his black uniform clean and pressed despite the long journey from Earth. Behind him, the doors closed with finality that seemed to echo through the enormous room. The chamber was built to intimidate. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds formed near the top. 47 different alien species sat in curved rows that rose. Like a mountain around the central floor where Jinwoo now stood alone, each species had their own section with special atmosphere controls, gravity adjustments, and lighting that suited their biology. The ethereal dominion sat highest, their translucent forms glowing with soft blue light. Below them were the insectoid hive collective, their chittering mandibles creating a constant background noise. The aquatic depth dwellers floated in massive water tanks. The crystalline Vex reflected rainbow patterns across the walls. Jinwoo had been to this chamber many times before. He had negotiated trade agreements here. He had signed peace treaties at this very spot. He had even received commendations for human contributions to galactic science and culture. But today felt different. Today felt like an ending. Counselor Vrex of the Ethereal Dominion rose from his seat. His voice carried through the chamber without any visible speaking apparatus, reaching every corner with perfect clarity. "We are gathered to discuss the human problem," Vrex announced. "For 300 years, we have tried to integrate this species into civilized galactic society. The results have been ... troubling." A holographic display activated in the center of the chamber. Images began to play, showing human soldiers in combat. The first scene showed the Battle of Kepler Station, where human marines had fought off Vex. Crystal raiders, who were enslaving mining colonies. The humans had shown no mercy to enemies who had tortured captured workers. "Observe their brutality," Vrex continued. "When faced with opponents, humans do not seek diplomatic solutions. They do not attempt peaceful resolution. They destroy completely." The next image showed human negotiators walking away from peace talks with the Crimson Fleet pirates. The pirates had demanded tribute payments from civilian trade ships in exchange. For safe passage, the humans had refused and instead hunted down every pirate base in 3-star systems. "They refuse reasonable compromise," added Counselor Vex of the Hive Collective, her words buzzing through translator systems. "Other species understand that some conflict is acceptable if it maintains stability. Humans see any threat to innocence as unforgivable." Jinwoo watched the displays without emotion. Every scene they showed was accurate. Every action they criticized had been necessary. The Vex Raiders had been torturing prisoners for sport. The Crimson Fleet had been selling children into slavery. But he knew that explaining this would change nothing. The presentation continued. It showed human soldiers bonding with alien refugees, carrying wounded enemies to safety, sharing rations with starving populations on war-torn worlds. But Vrex narrated these scenes as evidence of dangerous emotional attachment. "Notice how they form personal connections with other species," Vrex said. "This pack-bonding behavior makes them unpredictable. They will sacrifice strategic advantages to protect individuals they barely know. They cannot think logically about acceptable losses." Representative Korth of the Stone Republic spoke next. His rocky form ground against itself as he moved. "We have tried to educate them. We have tried to show them proper civilized behavior. They refuse to learn. Instead, they corrupt other species with their emotional thinking," the display showed. Human teachers working with young aliens, human doctors treating patients regardless of species, and human engineers building infrastructure on developing worlds. All of it was presented as evidence of human contamination of proper galactic order. Jinwoo finally spoke. "May I respond to these charges?" "You may speak," Vrex allowed. "Though we have heard human justifications many times before." Jinwoo looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. Some species he had worked with personally. Others he had helped in times of crisis. A few had been saved from extinction by human intervention. None of them met his eyes now. "You call us brutal because we protect the innocent," Jinwoo said. "You call us emotional because we care about individual lives. You call us corrupting because we treat other species as equals, instead of resources or obstacles." "Precisely," Rex replied. You fail to understand the natural order. Some species are meant to lead, others are meant to follow. Some conflicts are necessary for stability. Some sacrifices must be made for the greater good. Humans reject these truths. We reject nothing, Jinwoo said. We simply believe that strength should protect weakness, not exploit it. We believe that intelligence should solve problems, not create them. We believe that civilization means taking care of each other. The chamber filled with sounds that might have been laughter from some species and disapproval from others. Counselor. Vrex raised a hand for silence. This is exactly the problem, Vrex said. Humans believe their way is the only correct way. They cannot accept that other species have different values, different needs, different approaches to survival and prosperity. Final part of the presentation began. It showed recent incidents where human colonies had refused to follow council directives. Mining operations that had been shut down because humans declared them environmentally destructive, trade agreements that had been canceled because humans discovered unfair labor practices, military support that had been withdrawn because humans disagreed with targeting civilian populations. They undermined council authority at every opportunity, Counselor Vex buzzed. They spread dissatisfaction among member species. They encourage rebellion against proper order. Vrex stood again, his glowing form brightening. The Galactic Council has reached a decision. Humanity poses a clear and present danger to civilized society. Their violent tendencies, emotional instability, and refusal to accept authority make them unsuitable for life among peaceful species. Jinwoo felt his heart sink, but he kept his expression neutral. He had expected this, but hope had made him believe there might be another way. However, Vrex continued, we are not a cruel species. We do not believe in genocide or unnecessary suffering. We have found a solution that will allow humans to continue existing while protecting the rest of the galaxy from their influence. The holographic display changed to show a planet at the edge of known space. It was a world of red rocks, sulfur, clouds, and constant volcanic activity. Twin suns burned in its sky, casting everything in crimson twilight. Cathera Prime, Vrex announced. A world at the frontier of explored space. It has an atmosphere humans can breathe, and gravity they can survive. It will become the new human homeworld. You mean prison? Jinwoo said quietly. We prefer to think of it as rehabilitation, Vrex replied. On Cathara Prime, humans will have the opportunity to learn proper civilized behavior. Away from other species, they cannot spread their dangerous ideas. Away from galactic society, they cannot disrupt the natural order. Jinwoo looked around the chamber one final time. If we refuse, refusal is not an option, Counselor Korth rumbled. The decision is final. All human settlements, stations, and ships will be evacuated within 6 months. Every human will be relocated to Cathara Prime. No exceptions. The silence that followed felt like the end of the world. Jinwoo had spent his entire career trying to build bridges between humanity and the galaxy. He had believed that understanding and cooperation were possible. He had been wrong. I have one final statement, Jinwoo said. Vrex nodded. Speak. Jinwoo straightened his shoulders and looked directly at the ethereal counselor. His voice carried clearly through the chamber as he spoke words that would be remembered long after this day. We have spent 300 years trying to be what you wanted us to be. We tried to be calm when you wanted us peaceful. We tried to be logical when you wanted us rational. We tried to be obedient when you wanted us civilized. Now, you will see what we really are when we stop pretending to be something else. He turned and walked toward the massive doors. They opened automatically as he approached, but before stepping through, he looked back one final time. You think you are sending us to die, he said. You may be right. But if we survive, if we adapt, if we become something new on that world, you have chosen for us. Remember this moment. Remember that you created whatever we become. The doors closed behind Ambassador Jinwoo with the same thunderous sound that had announced his arrival. In the chamber, 47 species sat in silence, each wondering if they had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history. 6 months later, the first transport ships departed for Cathara Prime. Carrying humanity into exile and toward a destiny none of them could imagine, The first thing Minji noticed about Cathera Prime was the smell. Even through the transport ship's filtered air system, the metallic scent of iron oxide mixed with sulfur made her nose burn. She pressed her face against the small window as their ship descended through the crimson atmosphere. Watching the alien landscape unfold below, two suns hung in the sky like angry red eyes, casting everything in bloody twilight. The ground stretched out in jagged formations of black volcanic rock that looked like broken teeth. Yellow pools of what might have been water dotted the landscape, but they bubbled and steamed in ways that water should not. Landing in 30 seconds, announced Captain Suyun over the ship's communication system. Prepare for atmosphere transition. Okay. Minji checked her breathing mask one more time. The planet's air was supposedly safe for humans, but the Council's reports had been minimal. She was an engineer, trained to build and fix things. But right now, she felt more like a prisoner being delivered to her cell. The transport ship touched down with a grinding thud that shook everyone inside. Through the hall, Minji could hear the wind howling across the volcanic plains. It sounded like the planet itself was screaming. "Welcome to your new home," Captain Suyun said bitterly. He had been forced to pilot exile ships for 6 months, watching his own species get scattered across this hostile world. Exit through the rear cargo bay. Stay close to the landing zone until we can establish safe perimeters. The cargo bay doors opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Hot, dry air rushed in, carrying the full force of Cathara Prime's hostile atmosphere. Minji pulled her breathing mask tight and stepped outside. The gravity was wrong. Not enough to kill them, but heavy enough to make every step feel like she was carrying extra weight. The ground beneath her feet was sharp volcanic glass that crunched and shifted with every movement. In the distance, she could see other transport ships landing, delivering more groups of human exiles to this red nightmare. "Engineering team, report to Survey Station Alpha," came a voice through her radio. Minji recognized it as Dr. Hyunhwa, the medical officer who had been organizing the initial settlement efforts. She made her way across the treacherous ground toward a cluster of temporary shelters that marked their base camp. Other humans moved around her, some carrying equipment, others just standing and staring at the alien landscape with expressions of shock and fear. Survey Station Alpha was nothing more than a reinforced tent with communication equipment and basic atmospheric monitoring devices. Dr. Hyunhwa stood over a table covered with readouts and measurements, his face grim. "What's the situation?" Minji asked. Hyunhwa looked up from his data. "Bad. Worse than bad." The Council's reports were either incomplete or deliberately misleading. He gestured to the atmospheric readings. "The air is breathable, but it's slowly poisonous.
Ow.
Long-term exposure will cause lung damage and cellular breakdown. The gravity is exactly heavy enough to stress our joints and bones without quite crippling us. The radiation from those twin suns will give us cancer if we stay exposed. Too long." "How long do we have?" Minji asked. "If we do nothing, most people will start getting seriously sick within 6 months. Dead within 2 years. Minji studied the data herself. As an engineer, she could see the patterns in the numbers. This isn't accidental. The Council chose this place specifically. It's designed to kill us slowly. "That's what I think too," Hyunwoo agreed. "But there's more. Look at these geological surveys." Pulled up readings from ground-penetrating sensors. The data showed a complex network of caves and tunnels beneath the volcanic surface. Some of the spaces were enormous, big enough to hold entire cities. "The planet isn't stable," Hyunwoo explained. "Those rock formations we landed near, they move. At night, they shift and change position. The ground itself is alive somehow." Before Minji could respond, screaming erupted from the direction of Survey Team Beta. Through the red twilight, she could see people running back toward the base camp. Behind them, something large and dark moved between the jagged rock formations. "What is that?" she whispered. The creature that emerged from the rocks was like nothing in Earth's fossil record or the galaxy's catalog of known species. It stood, as tall as a building, with 6 legs that ended in claws sharp enough to cut through volcanic glass. Its body was covered in scales that looked like polished metal. Its head had too many eyes, all glowing with pale green light. Everyone inside The shelters, Dr. Hinwu shouted through his radio. Lock down all equipment? Nobody goes outside until that thing leaves? The creature moved with surprising grace for something so large. It approached the human camp slowly, its multiple eyes focusing on the temporary structures. For a long moment, it simply stood there, as if studying these strange new arrivals. Then it turned and walked away, disappearing back into the maze of volcanic rocks. Motion sensors are picking up more of them, reported Kangman, a former soldier who had taken charge of camp security. Dozens of them. Different sizes, different shapes. We're not alone on this planet. Over the following days, the true nature of Kethera Prime revealed itself. The creatures were everywhere. Spider-like things the size of ground vehicles wove. Webs from some kind of crystallized material that rang like bells in the wind.
Ow.
Smaller predators with glowing fur and too many teeth hunted in packs across the volcanic plains. And in the deep caves, something with tentacles and intelligence watched the human settlements with interest that felt disturbingly like hunger. Minji led expedition after expedition beyond the safe perimeter, mapping the local area and searching for resources they could use. What she found was a planet that seemed actively hostile to life, but not randomly so. The shifting rock formations followed patterns. The predators hunted with strategy and coordination. Even the atmosphere seemed to change in response to human activity. It's like the whole planet is one big organism, she reported to settlement leader Doyan during one of their evening briefings. Everything here is connected somehow. The creatures, the rocks, even the air we're breathing. Doyan was a practical man who had been elected to lead their group because he knew how to organize people and resources. But even he looked overwhelmed by their situation. How many people are we going to lose? He asked Dr. Hunwal. The medical officer consulted his tablet. If we can't find better shelter and cleaner air, it's maybe half within the first year, more after that. And the creatures. Kangman answered that one. They're studying us. I've been watching their behavior patterns. They come close enough to observe, but they don't attack unless we threaten them first. It's like they're trying to figure out what we are. Minji had noticed the same thing. During her surveys, she had encountered several of the smaller predators. They had followed her team at a distance, watching but not approaching. Their body language reminded her of curious dogs, if dogs had metallic fur and glowing eyes. Maybe that's our answer, she said suddenly. What do you mean? Doyon asked. We can't fight this planet. It's too big, too hostile, too alien. But maybe we don't have to fight it. Maybe we can learn to live with it. Dr. Hunwa shook his head. These things are predators. They see us as food or threats. Maybe they see us as something else, Minji insisted. Something they haven't encountered before. 3 weeks later, her theory was put to the test. A group of children, led by young Hanyul, had been exploring near the camp perimeter when they encountered one of the smaller predators. Instead of running or calling for help, Hanyul had approached the creature with open hands and calm movements. The creature, which the children had started calling a hellhound, because of its glowing eyes and metallic fur, had not attacked. Instead, it had tilted its head and watched Hanyul with what looked like curiosity. When the boy had spoken to it in soft, gentle tones, the creature had actually stepped closer. I think it understands emotions, Hanyul reported excitedly when he returned to camp. Not words, but feelings. When I was scared, it backed away. When I was calm and friendly, it came closer. Dr. Hunwu examined the boy carefully, but found no injuries. Oh, this is incredibly dangerous. We don't know anything about these creatures' behavior or capabilities. But Mingi was thinking like an engineer again.
What if that's exactly what we
need to learn? What if understanding them is the key to surviving here? That night, as the twin suns set and the rock formations began their nightly shifting, Minji stood at the edge of the camp and watched the glowing eyes of predators moving in the darkness. For the first time since arriving on Kethera Prime, she felt something other than fear. She felt possibility. The Council had sent them here to die, but humans had always been survivors. They had colonized frozen worlds and desert planets. They had adapted to alien environments and learned to work with species completely different from themselves. maybe, Cathara Prime would kill them. That maybe, just maybe, they would find a way. To make it home, in the distance, a hellhound howled at the crimson moons, and Minji found herself wondering what it was trying to say. Dr. Sunmi had always been fascinated by how different species communicated. On Earth, she had studied dolphin songs and elephant calls. In space, she had learned to interpret the chemical signals of insectoid races and the light patterns of energy beings. But the hellhounds of Cathara Prime were unlike anything she had ever encountered. She crouched in her makeshift laboratory, watching data streams from the sensors she had placed around the camp. For weeks, she had been recording the electromagnetic fields generated by the creatures that lived on this hostile world. What she found was changing everything they thought they knew about intelligence and communication. The patterns are too complex to be accidental, she told settlement leader Doyan during their morning briefing. These creatures are talking to each other, but not with sounds or chemicals. They're using bioelectric fields. Doyan studied the readouts she showed him. You mean like how our brains use electrical impulses? Exactly like that, but stronger and more focused? When one hellhound encounters something new, it broadcasts that information to others in the area. They share experiences, memories, even emotions through these electrical signals. Young Hanyor raised his hand from where he sat with the other children who had been helping with the research. Does that mean they know everything about us? Not everything, Sunmi smiled. But they know we're different from anything they've seen before. They know we're intelligent. They know we can be either dangerous or peaceful. The breakthrough came 3 days later when former Marine Kangman volunteered to test Sunmi's theories. He had been watching the largest hellhound, an alpha male, that the children had named Fury. The creature was massive, easily twice the size of the others, with metallic scales that reflected the red light of Cathara Prime's twin suns. If these things really do communicate through electrical fields, Kangman said, then maybe we can learn to communicate back. Sunmi had been working on that exact problem, using salvaged equipment from their transport ships. She had built a device that could generate simple electromagnetic pulses. It was crude compared to what the hellhounds produce naturally, but it might be enough to send basic messages. The risk is enormous, Dr. Hinwu warned. We don't know how they'll react to direct contact attempts. They might see it as an attack. But Kangman was determined. He had spent his military career building trust with people from different cultures and species. The principles should be the same, even if the species was completely alien. He approached Fury slowly, the electromagnetic generator in his hands. The massive hellhound watched him with glowing green eyes, its body tense but not immediately aggressive. When Kangman was close enough to touch the creature, he activated the device. The pulse was simple, just a basic pattern that Sunmi had designed to convey peaceful intentions. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Fury tilted his head and sent back a much more complex signal. Kangman felt it as a warm sensation in his mind. It's like suddenly understanding something he had never known before. Images flashed through his thoughts. Not his own memories, but someone else's. He saw the volcanic plains from above, safe paths through the shifting rock formations, hidden caves with clean water and breathable air. It worked, he whispered, his voice filled with wonder. He's showing me things. Places we need to know about. The bond that formed between Kangman and Fury changed everything. Within hours, other humans were attempting similar connections with different creatures. Engineer Minji found herself partnered with one of the crystalline spider beings, a creature whose web-weaving abilities could help them build stronger shelters. Dr. Hyunwoo connected with a tentacled cave dweller that seemed to understand advanced chemistry and biology, but the changes weren't one-sided. The humans who formed bonds with the native creatures began experiencing physical alterations. Their night vision improved dramatically. Their reflexes became faster and more precise. Most importantly, they developed resistance to the planet's hostile atmosphere and radiation. Revolving, Dr. Sunmi reported to the Settlement Council. The bonds we're forming with these creatures are changing us on a cellular level. Our bodies are adapting to survive here. Settlement leader Do Yan examined the medical data with growing amazement. How is this possible? The creatures have been living on this planet for millions of years, Sunmay explained. They've adapted to every environmental challenge Cathara Prime can offer. When we bond with them, we're not just sharing thoughts and emotions. We're sharing genetic information. The implications were staggering. Humans weren't just surviving on this death world. They were becoming something new, something that had never existed before in the galaxy. Kangman and Fury became the example that others followed. Together, they could navigate the shifting rock mazes that would trap a human or creature alone. Fury's natural understanding of the planet's dangers combined with Kangman's strategic thinking made them nearly unstoppable as an exploration team. It's not ownership, Kangman explained to newcomers who arrived on later transport ships. Isn't my pet or my tool? We're partners, equal partners who help each other survive. Engineer Minji's partnership with her spider being, which she called Weaver, led to architectural breakthroughs. The creature's ability to spin crystalline threads was combined with Minji's engineering, knowledge to create buildings that could reshape themselves in response to environmental threats. Their shelters became living structures that adapted to protect their inhabitants. Dr. Hyan was bond with his tentacled partner. Deep thought revolutionized their medical capabilities. The creature's understanding of biochemistry was unlike anything in human science. Together, they developed treatments that could heal injuries in hours instead of weeks and extend human lifespans far beyond normal limits, but perhaps the most important discovery came from the children. Young Haniel and his friends formed bonds more easily than adults, and their connections seemed deeper and more complete. They began displaying abilities that amazed even Dr. Sunmi. I can feel what Storm is feeling, Haniel said, referring to his hellhound partner. When he's happy, I'm happy. When he's worried about danger, I know to be careful too. The bonded children could sense threats before they appeared, navigate in complete darkness, and communicate with multiple creatures simultaneously. They were becoming something entirely new, part human and part alien, but fully themselves. Settlement. Leader Doyon realized they were witnessing the birth of a new form of life. The bonds between humans and creatures weren't just helping them survive. They were creating a society unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. We need to document everything, he told Dr. Sunmi. The council thinks we're dying out here. They have no idea what we're actually becoming. As months passed, the human settlements grew into something that could barely be called human anymore. The buildings moved and adapted like living things. The inhabitants could survive in environments that would kill ordinary humans. And the partnerships between species created capabilities that neither could achieve alone. Former Ambassador Jinwoo was working with his own bonded partner, a deep-thinking cave creature he called Wisdom, began analyzing what they had become from a strategic perspective. The galaxy had feared human brutality and pack-bonding tendencies. But those same traits were exactly what made the partnerships with alien creatures possible. We're not just surviving, he told the Settlement Council. We're becoming something the galaxy has never faced. A truly cooperative civilization where different species work together as equals. The silence from Kithara Prime that the Council interpreted as extinction was actually preparation. The humans and their bonded partners were learning, growing, and becoming stronger. They were developing capabilities that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what was possible when species worked together, instead of competing for dominance. In the caves beneath the volcanic surface, human creature, partnerships were planning for the future. They had been sent here to die, but death had not claimed them. Instead, exile had given them the opportunity to become something greater than they had ever been as a purely human species. When the twin suns set each day, and the red light faded to darkness, the settlement glowed with the bioluminescent signs of creatures who had made their homes among humans. And in that glow, a new form of civilization was taking shape. One that would soon be ready to return to the galaxy that had cast it out. The Council's greatest fear was about to become reality. But not in the way they had expected. They had feared human brutality, but what was coming was something far more dangerous to their established order. What was coming was proof that cooperation could triumph over control, that partnership could overcome domination. and that exile could become transformation. Bonds forged in hell were unbreakable, and they would soon reshape the stars themselves. 2 years had passed since the last transport ship left Cathera Prime. In the Galactic Council chambers, humanity was officially listed as extinct. The record showed that 847 transport ships had delivered approximately 12 million humans. To the Death World, none had returned. Counselor Vrex of the Ethereal Dominion reviewed the final reports with satisfaction. The human problem has been solved, he announced to the assembled representatives. Cathera Prime has claimed them all, as we predicted it would. But on the edge of known space, something extraordinary had grown from the ashes of exile. Thought. Original landing sites were empty now, but not because death had claimed their inhabitants. The humans and their bonded partners had spread across an entire continent, building cities that breathed and grew like living things. Commander Jiho stood on a crystalline platform that extended from the main spire of New Haven, the largest of their settlements. His hellhound partner Storm lay beside him, both of them watching the morning hunt patterns of their aerial scouts. Storm had grown enormous over the past 2 years, his metallic scales now forming natural armor plates and electromagnetic sensors that could detect threats from orbit. Patrol 7 reports all clear to the northern valleys. Storm communicated through their bond. The Hellhound's thoughts came as images and feelings rather than words, but Jiho understood perfectly. Any sign of Council scout ships? Jiho asked. Not today, but the deep thinkers in the cave networks report strange vibrations from space. Something may be coming. Jiho nodded and activated his communication implant. A biomechanical device grown from the partnership between human technology and creature biology. Council meeting in 1 hour. Alert all settlement leaders. The city around them was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Buildings made from crystalline spider silk bent and swayed in the wind but never broke. Living architecture that could repair itself, defend against attacks, and adapt to changing needs. Transportation tubes grown by cooperative creatures carried humans and their partners through the urban landscape at incredible speeds. In the 2 years since the exile began, the human-creature partnerships had achieved what entire civilizations spent millennia trying to accomplish. They had created a truly sustainable society where every need was met through cooperation rather than exploitation. Engineer Minji arrived at the council chamber, riding her spider partner Weaver. The creature had grown to the size of a small building, its crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns that decorated the walls. Together, they had designed most of New Haven's infrastructure, creating systems that were part technology and part living organism. The manufacturing centers are at full capacity, Mindy reported as she took her seat. We can now produce anything we need, from basic tools to starship components. Dr. Huan Wu entered with deep thought, his tentacled partner whose biochemical knowledge had revolutionized human medicine. The creature's ability to synthesize complex compounds had eliminated disease and extended human lifespans to centuries rather than decades. Medical facilities report full health across all settlements, Huan Wu said. The bonding process has made us immune to most diseases and highly resistant to radiation and toxins. Former Ambassador Jin Wu walked in with wisdom, a cave dweller, whose intelligence rivaled the greatest minds in the galaxy. Together, they had been analyzing galactic politics and preparing for what everyone knew was inevitable. The Council believes we're extinct, Jin Wu announced. But their scout ships are starting to investigate this region of space. It's only a matter of time before they discover what we've become. Settlement leader Doyan called the meeting to order. Around the circular chamber, representatives from dozens of human-creature partnerships shared information through both spoken words and bioelectric communication. The speed and efficiency of their discussions amazed visitors from the newer settlements. We have a choice to make, Doyan said. We can remain hidden and hope the Council never finds us, or we can take action. Young Haniel, now a teenager whose bond with his hellhound companion had made him one of their most effective scouts, spoke up. Remaining hidden isn't really an option. Council will find us eventually, and when they do, they'll try to destroy us. Commander Jiho agreed. Our reconnaissance teams have mapped Council patrol routes throughout this sector. They're getting closer to Cathara Prime with every passing month. Dr. Sunmi, whose research into creature communication had made the entire bonding process possible, presented her latest findings. We've made contact with similar creatures on 17 other worlds. The bonding ability isn't unique to Cathara Prime. It exists wherever these life forms are found. The implications were staggering. If humans could form partnerships with creatures throughout the galaxy, the balance of power would shift dramatically. There's something else, Jinwoo added. Our analysis of Council databases shows that member species are becoming increasingly dissatisfied with Council authority. Trade restrictions, resource exploitation, and military conscription are creating widespread resentment. Wisdom, his tentacled partner, sent a complex bioelectric signal that translated as strategic analysis. The creature had been studying galactic politics with the intensity that only a truly alien intelligence could bring to human problems. Wisdom believes the galaxy is ready for an alternative to Council rule, Jinwoo interpreted. But only if we can demonstrate that cooperation is more effective than domination. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some argued for peaceful contact, others for strategic strikes against Council facilities. But gradually, a consensus emerged around a plan that was both bold and carefully calculated. They would not remain hidden. They would not seek revenge. Instead, they would begin liberating other worlds, showing the galaxy that there was an alternative to Council control. Start small, Commander Jiho explained. Individual ships, small teams, specific targets. We hit slave markets, illegal mining operations, and military facilities that oppress civilian populations. And we show them what we've become, added Minji. Every operation demonstrates the effectiveness of human-creature partnerships. We prove that cooperation creates strength, not weakness. The first mission launched 3 weeks later. Commander Jiho and Storm, accompanied by 12 other bonded pairs, departed Cathara Prime in a ship that was part technology and part living creature. The crystalline spiders had learned to weave hulls that could survive hyperspace travel. While the deep thinkers provided biological life support systems, their target was a slave market in the Rigel system, where the Council permitted legal trading of sentient beings in exchange for rare minerals. The operation would test everything they had learned about working together. The attack came without warning. Council's security forces found themselves facing opponents who moved with perfect coordination, communicated without words, and adapted to changing situations instantly. The bonded pairs fought with the combined intelligence of 2 species and the focused determination of people who had learned to survive in hell within hours. The slave market was destroyed, the prisoners freed, and the human-creature teams had vanished back into hyperspace. But they left behind something that would spread across the galaxy faster than any news report. They left behind hope. The freed slaves carried stories of humans who fought alongside alien creatures as equal partners. Word spread to other oppressed populations about liberators who didn't conquer or control, but simply freed people and left them to govern themselves. Back on Cathara Prime, monitoring stations tracked the Council's response. Emergency sessions were called. Military alerts were issued. And for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council faced an enemy they couldn't understand or predict. Phase 1 is complete, Jinwoo reported to the Settlement Council. Galaxy knows we survived. Now, they'll learn what we've become. In the crystalline spires of New Haven, human children played with creature companions that could reshape matter and manipulate energy. In the deep caves, partnerships between species developed technologies that seemed like magic to outside observers. And in the command centers, bonded pairs planned operations that would reshape galactic civilization. The silence from Cathara Prime was about to end. When it did, the galaxy would discover that exile had not destroyed humanity. It had transformed them into something the Council had never imagined and could never control. The bonds forged in hell were about to set the galaxy free. The merchant ship Prosperity's Dream was 3 days out from the Centauri trade station when something impossible appeared on their sensors. Captain Johann stared at the readings, convinced his equipment was malfunctioning. That can't be right. He muttered to his navigation officer, run a full diagnostic on the sensor array, but the readings remained the same. A ship was approaching them from the direction of the restricted zone around Cathara Prime, according to Council records. Nothing had survived in that region for over 2 years. Captain, his communications officer called out, "We're receiving a transmission. Audio and visual." "Put it through," Johann ordered. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a face that made the captain's blood run cold. Ambassador Jinwoo looked exactly as he had during the exile proceedings, but his eyes held a depth and intensity that hadn't been there before. "Greetings, Prosperity's Dream," Jinwoo said calmly. "I am Ambassador Jinwoo of the Human Creature Alliance. We need to talk." Captain Johann's hands shook as he activated his reply channel. "That's impossible. All humans were relocated to Cathara Prime. The Council confirmed total extinction." "The Council was wrong about many things," Jinwoo replied. "But they were especially wrong about what would happen when they tried to destroy us." The visual transmission expanded to show more of Jinwoo's ship. Captain Johann gasped as he saw crystalline structures that seemed to pulse with their own life, organic corridors that breathed like living tissue, and creatures that moved alongside humans as equals rather than pets or servants. "We survived," Jinwoo continued. "We adapted. We evolved. Now we're coming home to share what we've learned with the rest of the galaxy." Before Captain Johann could respond, his ship's proximity alarms began screaming. More vessels were appearing around them, but these weren't ships in any traditional sense. They were living creatures the size of battleships, their crystalline shells refracting starlight into rainbow patterns, their movement through space graceful and purposeful. "Don't be afraid," Jinwoo said gently. "We're not here to harm you. We're here to offer you something the Council never could. We're here to offer you freedom." The message that Captain Johann carried back to Centauri Station spread across the galaxy within days. Humans had not only survived their exile to Cathara Prime, they had returned as something entirely new. Recordings of their living ships and creature partnerships circulated through every communication network, reaching even the most isolated Council worlds. The Council's response was swift and predictable. Emergency sessions declared the human survivors to be an abomination that threatened galactic order. Military forces were mobilized to hunt down and destroy what they termed the corruption from Cathara Prime. But the humans and their partners were already 3 steps ahead. Commander Jiho led the first major liberation operation against the Vex crystal mines on Kepler 7. The Vex had been enslaved for decades, forced to mine their own crystalline offspring to fuel Council technology. When human creature teams appeared in the mining facilities, the effect was immediate and dramatic. The bonded pairs moved through the facility like living shadows. Storm and Jiho navigated security systems that would have stopped any normal infiltration team. Minji and Weaver bypassed electronic locks by having the crystalline spider interface directly with the facility's computer systems. Dr. Hyunwoo and Deep Thought neutralized guard forces using biochemical compounds that induced sleep rather than death. But the most powerful moment came when the enslaved X saw humans fighting alongside crystalline creatures as equal partners. For a species that had been treated as living tools by the Council, witnessing true cooperation between different life forms was revolutionary. "How is this possible?" asked Elder Zenth, the senior Vex prisoner. His crystalline form reflected the light from Weaver's body in patterns that spoke of wonder and hope. "We learned that strength comes from partnership, not domination," Jiho explained through Storm's bioelectric translation. "Would you like to learn the same thing?" Within hours, the mining facility was shut down. The Vex prisoners were free, and word was spreading through Vex space about the humans who treated crystalline beings as equals. The psychological impact was devastating to Council authority. Similar operations launched simultaneously across 12 different systems. Slave markets were destroyed on Rigel 4. Illegal mining operations were shut down in the asteroid colonies. Military installations that oppressed civilian populations found themselves facing opponents who combined the strategic thinking of humans with the natural abilities of creatures that had evolved to survive in the harshest, environments imaginable, each victory demonstrated the same principle. The human-creature partnerships didn't conquer territory or impose their will on liberated populations. They simply removed the systems of oppression and left people free to govern themselves. The effect on galactic public opinion was electric. Species that had spent centuries under council control began to whisper about alternatives. Trade unions formed among races that had been kept artificially separate. Independent colonies declared themselves free from council authority. But perhaps the most significant impact was on the council's military forces. Soldiers who had been told they were fighting abominations instead found themselves facing liberators who showed mercy to prisoners, protected civilians, and demonstrated capabilities that seemed impossible. "They don't fight like any enemy we've encountered," reported Admiral Krex after his fleet's defeat at the Battle of Proxima Station. "Their coordination is perfect. Their adaptability is instant. Their tactics combine multiple species capabilities in ways we can't predict or counter." The truth was that human-creature partnerships represented a form of warfare the galaxy had never seen. Traditional military doctrine was based on hierarchical command structures and species-specific capabilities. The bonded pairs operated as perfect equals, sharing thoughts and abilities in real time, adapting to changing situations with the combined intelligence of multiple forms of consciousness. More disturbing to the Council was the tendency of their own forces to defect after encountering the human-creature teams. Soldiers who witnessed true cooperation between species began questioning why their own military maintained strict racial segregation and rigid hierarchies. The turning point came when 3 entire Council fleets declared independence and requested alliance with the Human-Creature Coalition. The military forces that were supposed to destroy the Cathara Prime corruption instead joined it, bringing with them detailed knowledge of Council weaknesses and strategic plans. Former Ambassador Jinwu, working with his partner Wisdom in a council of bonded pairs, coordinated the campaign from their mobile command center. It was a ship that existed half in normal space and half in dimensions that the deep thinkers understood but humans could barely comprehend. "The galaxy is ready for change," Jinwu announced during a transmission that reached every inhabited world. "For too long, the Council has maintained order through fear and separation. They've convinced species that cooperation is impossible, that different forms of life must compete rather than collaborate." The transmission showed scenes from the liberated worlds, Vex crystalline beings working alongside human engineers to build new technologies, aquatic species partnering with deep thinkers to explore ocean worlds, former slaves becoming equal partners in their own liberation. "We offer an alternative," Jinwu continued. "Not human rule or creature dominance, but true cooperation between all forms of intelligent life. We offer a galaxy where diversity creates strength rather than conflict." As world after world declared independence from Council authority, it became clear that the balance of power had shifted permanently. The exile to Cathara Prime had not destroyed humanity. It had transformed them into the catalyst for galactic revolution. But the final confrontation was yet to come. The Council still controlled the core worlds and the most powerful military forces, and they had made a decision that would determine the fate of the galaxy. They would make their stand in the place where it all began. They would face the human creature. Alliance in the same chamber where humanity had been condemned to exile, the return to the Council chambers would complete the circle. But the galaxy that emerged from that confrontation would be forever changed by the bonds forged in the hell of Cathara Prime. The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened for the second time in Ambassador Jinwu's life, but everything else had changed. 3 years earlier, he had walked through those doors alone, representing a species about to be exiled to death. Now he entered alongside Wisdom, his tentacled partner whose intelligence had helped reshape galactic civilization. The chamber was no longer filled with the confident representatives of 47 species. Half the seats stood empty, their occupants having declared independence from Council authority. The remaining delegates looked nervous and uncertain, their 1,000-year grip on galactic power crumbling with each passing day. Counselor Vex of the ethereal dominion still sat in the highest seat, but his glowing form seemed dimmer than before. The weight of failed policies and military defeats had taken their toll on the once proud council leadership. "So," Vrek said, his voice carrying less authority than it once had, "the humans return from the dead to haunt us. We return to offer you the same thing we've offered every other world," Jinwu replied calmly. "A choice between cooperation and isolation." Behind Jinwu, the chamber filled with representatives that would have been impossible 3 years ago. Commander Jiho entered with Storm, the massive hellhound whose metallic scales reflected the chamber's lights like living armor. Engineer Mingi walked beside Weaver, whose crystalline spider form had grown large, enough to serve as a mobile platform for construction equipment. But it wasn't just humans and their creature partners. The chamber now hosted Vex crystalline beings who had been freed from slavery, aquatic species who had escaped council resource exploitation, and dozens of other races that had joined the growing alliance. "Look around you," Jinwu said to the remaining council members. "Half your member species have chosen independence over control. Your military forces are defecting faster than you can replace them. Your trade networks are collapsing as worlds choose cooperation over exploitation." Zenth of the Vex spoke next, his crystalline form creating light patterns that translated through the chamber's systems. "For centuries you told us that different species could not work together as equals. You said cooperation was impossible, that someone must always rule and others must always serve." The Vex elder gestured toward Minji and Weaver, who were demonstrating perfect cooperation as they examined and improved the chamber's structural systems in real time. "These humans proved you wrong. It showed us that partnership creates strength, not weakness." Counselor Vex of the Hive Collective buzzed angrily. "You speak of cooperation, but you have destroyed our authority. You have disrupted the order that kept the galaxy peaceful for a millennium." Yon Hanel, now grown into one of the alliance's most effective ambassadors, responded with the wisdom that came from years of perfect partnership with his hellhound companion. "Your peace was built on the suffering of others. Called it order, but it was just organized oppression." Storm communicated through bioelectric fields that were translated for the non-bonded representatives. The hellhound's message was simple, but powerful. True peace came from mutual respect, not enforced submission. Dr. Hinwu and Deep Thought presented medical data that showed the effects of council policies on member species. Shortened lifespans due to resource exploitation, genetic damage from forced labor, psychological trauma from centuries of being treated as inferior beings. "This is what your order created," Hinwu said. "We offer healing instead of harm, growth instead of stagnation, hope instead of despair." The debate that followed lasted for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. One by one, the remaining council members faced the choice between adapting to the new reality or being replaced by their own populations. The ethereal dominion was the last to yield. Counselor Vrek stood in his transparent form, the glow around him flickering like a dying star. "If we accept this alliance," he said, "what guarantee do we have that humans will not simply become the new rulers? What stops this cooperation from becoming domination by another name?" Ginwu stepped forward, but he was not alone. Wisdom moved beside him, and their thoughts merged in the bioelectric communication that had become second nature to all bonded pairs. "Because we've learned something you never understood," Jinwu said. "Power shared is power multiplied. When we work together as equals, everyone becomes stronger. When we try to dominate others, everyone becomes weaker." The demonstration that followed changed galactic history. Every human creature partnership in the chamber began working together on a single project. Crystalline spiders wove energy-conducting threads while hellhounds provided electromagnetic fields. Deep thinkers synthesized complex compounds while humans provided strategic coordination in minutes. They had created a device that could revolutionize energy production across the galaxy. But more importantly, they had shown that the result of their cooperation was greater than the sum of its parts. "This is what we offer," Jinwu continued. "Not human rule or creature dominance, but true partnership where every species contributes their strengths and benefits from others' capabilities." The vote was unanimous. The old Galactic Council dissolved itself and reformed as the Alliance of Free Worlds. With representation based on cooperation rather than domination, the transformation that followed reshaped galactic civilization. Commander Jiho established the Cooperative Defense Corps, where humans and their partners served alongside volunteers from member species, but not as commanders over subjects. Instead, they served as facilitators who helped different species work together effectively. Engineer Minji led construction projects that combined technologies from dozens of civilizations. Cities grew that were part organic architecture, part crystalline technology, part energy manipulation, and part forms of engineering that had never existed before species learned to truly cooperate. Dr. Hunwoo headed medical research that extended lifespans and improved quality of life across the galaxy. The combination of human medicine, creature biochemistry, and alien physiology created healing techniques that seemed miraculous to those who remembered the limitations of single species science. But perhaps the most important change was in how young beings of all species were educated. Children grew up learning to communicate with and respect different forms of consciousness. The old prejudices and fears that had kept species separate for millennia began to fade as cooperation became the natural way of life. The galaxy learned that humanity's supposed brutality had actually been their refusal to accept unnecessary suffering. Their pack-bonding tendencies, once feared as dangerous emotional attachment, became the foundation for building genuine alliances between species that had been enemies for centuries. Trade flourished when species cooperated instead of competing. For council-controlled resources, scientific advancement accelerated when different forms of intelligence combined their unique perspectives. Even conflicts became less deadly when resolved by truly integrated multi-species. Diplomatic teams. 5 years after the Reformation, Ambassador Jin Woo stood once again in what had been the council chamber. But now it was called the Hall of Cooperation, and its purpose had completely changed. Instead of a place where powerful species dominated weaker ones, it had become a forum where any form of intelligent life could bring concerns and find partners to help solve problems. The chamber hosted beings that would have been impossible in the old system. Gaseous entities from the outer rim worked with crystalline computers to solve mathematical theorems. Plant-based intelligence networks partnered with mechanical species to terraform dead worlds. Energy beings collaborated with matter-based life forms to explore dimensions that neither could access alone. "We've built something that has never existed before," Jinwoo said to Wisdom during one of their quiet moments together. "A civilization based on respect instead of fear, cooperation instead of control." Wisdom's response came as a complex bioelectric pattern that conveyed satisfaction, hope, and something that might have been happiness. The deep thinker had lived for thousands of years before meeting humans, but had never experienced the joy that came from true partnership between different forms of consciousness. As Jinwoo looked out at the galaxy they had helped transform, he remembered his final words to the old council 3 years ago. He had warned them that they would see what humans really were when they stopped pretending to be something else. The council had expected brutality and violence. Instead, they had discovered that humans were natural bridge builders, capable of forming genuine partnerships with any form of intelligent life they encountered. The bonds forged in the hell of Cathara Prime had become the foundation for a galactic civilization that valued diversity as strength rather than weakness. The exile that was meant to destroy humanity had instead revealed their greatest gift to the galaxy. They had shown that cooperation between different species wasn't just possible. It was the key to unlocking potential that no single form of consciousness could achieve alone. In the end, the Council's greatest fear had become the galaxy's greatest hope. The humans, who had been labeled too brutal for civilized space, had taught the galaxy what true civilization really meant. The bonds were unbroken, and they had set the stars themselves free.